Welcome to Caring Community with your hosts Jay and Diane West. In this community, creative initiatives are welcome. A culture of transformation is normal, and miracles are expected. Welcome to Caring Community.
Hi, I'm Jay West, and this is Caring Community. Normally my wife is with me, but she is detained right now, not able to attend for a couple weeks, so I'm interviewing our guests independently. So this is my good friend, Clint Cave.
Hello.
Clint attends our church, and we've gotten acquainted, and remind me again, how many children you have?
We have 6 children.
That's what I thought. I was going to say 5 or 6. I know you've told me before, but I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. They're never all there at the same time. At least
No.
I haven't seen them all together.
No.
So you have 6 kids. What do the ages range from?
29 to 18.
29 to 18. Wow.
Or almost 18.
Okay. And you and your wife have been married how long?
35 years.
30?
Trick question.
Huh?
Trick question there. Yeah.
Trick question. Yeah, you better get that one right.
Yeah.
It's a good thing she decided not to attend, so that'd have
Yeah.
been funny if she'd been here and you got it wrong. But so part of the reason we're having you on Caring Community is that you and your wife have been involved with foster care. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So how many foster children have you had?
4.
4. When did you start having the foster children? Or when did you start? At what point in your marriage life?
About 6 years ago.
About 6 years ago. So all your kids were born and raised
Yes.
and on their way.
Yeah, and
Because
all my kids were, at that point, we still had all the kids in the home.
okay. Because 29 to 18, that'd have been
So, I mean, my
12
oldest
to
was like
22 or
22, 23. You know.
So to me, that's a significant challenge.
Yeah.
You already got 6 kids at home, and now you're taking in foster children too.
Yeah.
So tell us the story. What prompted you to do that? There must be you didn't just wake up one morning and say, I think we'll have some foster kids.
You know, honestly, I just felt, God just kind of put it on my wife's heart, to be honest with you. And she's always had a love for orphans. If you ask her what she loves to do, she says, I love the orphans. And so she kept talking to me and said, I think we should do foster care. I think we should do foster care.
Okay.
And finally, I just kind of looked at her one day and I said, we're not getting any younger. Let's do it.
What do you think prompted her? I mean, was there something in her background or growing up or friends growing up that were in that realm?
No, to my knowledge, she didn't have any background as far as, being connected to foster care or anything like that. I mean, we did, we have 6 of our own children, but early on when we were trying to have children, it just didn't happen. And at one point we were actually looking at adopting from overseas.
Okay.
And I don't know if that, may have planted a seed there, but we...
Out of curiosity, when you were doing overseas, what country were you looking at?
We're actually looking at the Samoa Islands.
Okay.
At one point.
Because we had a guest on about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Shelley Muldoon, and they adopted from Russia. So.
Okay. Yeah.
So, just curious about that. So you prayerfully make this decision. What steps do you have to go through to get a foster child?
We went through. Am I allowed to tell the agency?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Give a little plug. It's a Christian Heritage is the company that we work through.
Mm-hmm.
And we went with them. They, as indicated by their name, they have their basis is that they want to have children into Christian homes, and they encourage you to take the kids to church to talk about the Lord, and to basically live your faith out in front of them, and plant those seeds in their lives.
Is this company based in Omaha?
Yes. Okay. Actually, I think they're located. They're in Omaha, but I think they're actually headquartered in Lincoln, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So did you have to be interviewed, go through?
Yeah, there was like a 6-week class we had to take.
That's it for a class for church. 6 weeks. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So we would go for about 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours once a week for 6 weeks. it was a pretty good drive from our house to where we were taking the class, and we would come home every night, and they throw a lot of information at you. I mean, it's the world of a foster kid is so much different than the world of a child who grows up in a normal home where they're safe and they're provided for. And
Right.
One of the things they told us is no kid comes into foster care, out of a good situation, and that's just something you need to keep in mind. And so we would come home every week after they kind of downloaded all the information on us, and just kind of have to debrief on the way home and say, okay, what are we getting ourselves into? Because it was just a lot,
I would think any child, whether it's foster care or even adoption, is not coming from a good situation.
Exactly. I would agree with that.
So,
I mean, in a rare occasion, maybe with adoption, if it was like a family, but for the most part, probably you're correct.
so you're taking this class and you're learning. Are you also fielding questions? Are you taking any kind of tests, personality tests? I'm just curious.
We had to do a background check
Okay.
through the state, so we had to go down to the State Patrol office and get our fingerprints done, and make sure don't have any outstanding
I wonder why there's
felonies.
a little ink on your finger.
Yeah. That's from another incident.
Oh, okay. I was actually thinking on the way in, it's wonderful that, you and my second guest later on the second show has also has foster children 5 as well. And it's wonderful that with all the pedophiles and all sorts of crazies out there, that there are really wonderful people like yourself who already had 6 kids. You say, man, your house is full, your quiver is full, as they say in the Bible. It's like, and yet you're willing to take on more.
Yeah.
So, did you have them one at a time, or did you have more than
Well,
one?
our first, we've had basically 3 placements. The first time we had 2 girls that were siblings. And then after they actually transitioned home.
Okay.
And then we had got a baby that we got her when she's 5 days old.
Wow.
The first ones were like roughly 2 and 6 when we got them. And then the second placement was 5 days old when we got her, and she transitioned out about 9.5 months.
So what's the longest someone stayed?
The last one we had, she came to us when she was just shy of 2, and she left a little over a year ago to transition to family. And she was just like about 2 weeks shy of her 5th birthday.
So out of curiosity, why did you choose foster care over, say, adoption?
We started out with just the fostering, and then we were open to the idea of adoption. Honestly, I mean, there was, in all the cases where we were thinking about adopting, they ended up transitioning to the...
So some of the ones you had, foster care, you actually thought about
Yeah.
adopting them?
Yeah.
It was really, I would think it'd be difficult to deal or process having somebody in that you know is going to be temporary. You're going to love them, you're going to care for them, but eventually you're going to leave,
Well, and that's true, and it's also difficult because it's basically driven by the state, and there are a lot of processes to go through. I mean, before a parent loses their rights to their child, the state has to go through, pretty rigorous, process of saying, okay, no, they haven't been able to show that they are capable of caring for this child.
Right.
And so, you can't even really honestly think about adopting until, the biological parents are out of the picture. And then it's actually federally regulated that the goal of foster care nationwide is to place children with their kin, whether that's their biological parents,
Right.
whether that's a grandparent, whether that's, aunt and uncle, if possible.
Right.
And so, there's they're required to try to make that happen if possible, which, you know, I mean, that's their heritage. That's where they came from. That's, you know, kind of who their people are, so to speak. And, you know, so it makes sense, but it's still.
Where are these children hanging out in between their parents, no longer being their parents, and they're being adopted out of the foster care? Is there?
They're usually hanging out with the foster parents.
Well, I mean, like when you go get them, you went through the classes. Are they in a location where they're being cared for by the state?
There was actually, I mean, the first two placements, actually, they have caseworkers that work for Christian Heritage. You know, and when they're placed into foster care, you know, it kind of depends on the scenario. But I'm not really sure where all of them go to. But I mean, the first two, the caseworker just basically brought the child to our home and said, "Hi, here's your foster parents."
Does the organization give you any money to help you with this?
They do give you a monthly stipend, and it's, you know, kind of based on the acuity of the kid. So I mean, you have kiddos that are, you know, anywhere from, you know, kiddos who are just in a bad situation, but they don't have any developmental issues, they don't have any behavioral issues beyond being, you know, whatever age they are, and to, you know, kids who have, you know, severe behavioral issues because of the bad life they've had, up to, you know, some that you have also can get kids that are medically fragile. They have medical needs, and that's kind of a wide.
So, pick one of the ones you had or whatever, and tell us what the first day looks like, what the first week looks like as they come into your house. What do you do to welcome them? How do they acclimate to their new family? How do you make them feel loved, cared for, welcomed?
Well, I mean, okay, it kind of ran the gambit, you know, honestly. For instance, the baby that we got. Well, she came to us at 5 days old. Well, she basically just kind of got incorporated into the family, and
she doesn't know.
Yeah, she doesn't, you know, she didn't come with, I don't like that term, but a history.
Right.
So that was, you know, honestly, I mean, there was, you know, I mean, we hadn't had an infant in the house for a long time, so I mean, you know, getting up every 2 hours to feed was.
Kids that are teenagers through 20s, early 20s. Where is the child staying? Are they staying in one of your kids' rooms? Are they
well, at this point, with her, we actually had a crib that we put in our room.
Yeah, but I'm just.
And so then
the older ones, where were they?
The older ones, the first ones, we actually had we had a spare bedroom, and we were able to put them together in their bedroom.
That's amazing. You got 6 kids, you got a spare bedroom.
Well, I did. I mean, honestly, I had, you know, I had 2 sets of kids that were doubled up. Mm-hmm. You know, I had 2 boys who were in the same room, and then my daughters were in the same room. So that freed up a room for us to do that.
Sounds like a mini motel.
Yeah, I guess so. So that one was fairly simple, you know, relatively speaking. I mean, you know, the worst thing was, you know, I'm up every 2 hours doing feedings, you know.
Yeah. But I was really thinking more about the ones that are walking and talking.
The walking and talking ones. You know, the first 2 that we had, it was interesting because the younger one really, you know, she was just shy of 2, and she just kind of flexed and flowed into what we did. But her sister had problems. She had kind of been in a situation where she had to take care of her baby sister. And so she had a really hard time learning to trust that we were going to be okay with what we did with her. And so she was always on guard, always questioning what was happening. You know, the term they use is hypervigilant. And that was basically because of the situations that, you know, they had been in.
Well, some of these kids, first of all, they're coming from they've been displaced from their original parents for whatever reason.
Right.
And I don't know if it happened with you, but sometimes they've been in 2 or 3 other foster care homes before they came to you.
None of my, well, actually I take that back. Our last placement was probably our most challenging, but the one I learned the most from. And she had been in foster care since she was 6 months old. She came to us just under 2 years old. And had actually been in foster care before and had been neglected and abused while in foster care. And so
it's just hard to imagine
that,
if somebody first of all goes through all the training and somehow the state doesn't pick up on that, and third, that it even happens.
Yeah, that well said.
Bizarre.
And so she was. Her thing is, when we're not safe, we react in 2 different ways. Kind of our basic instinct is we fight or flight. If
you're 2 years old or 3 years old,
you don't have the physical means to do a whole lot of fighting. You can do kicking and screaming,
right.
Which occurred, but this little one, she was just constantly on overdrive. I mean, she was just always running, and for seemingly no reason, Inside her head, the world was crazy and unsafe, and
sure.
we were like, okay, you're safe, and it
Doesn't believe you because
it took a long time for her
experience.
to, it took a long time for her to get to where she could, sort of start to calm, but.
How difficult it must be for a child, and then you described they were abused in the previous foster care home. How is that discovered?
Well, I mean, part of it was there was, on her case, there was bruising on her arms and her backside that they discovered. And
who discovered it, though?
they have, when you have cases, your caseworker comes in periodically.
Okay.
And forgive me, I don't remember the actual frequency, but it's usually about once a month.
So somebody's coming in your home, checking on the child.
Checking on the kid, basically making sure that the placement is working, and that, how is the child progressing.
Okay.
And so, in that situation, I don't think the supervision was as sufficient as it should have been, but eventually they did, discover things, and then we actually picked her up from, forgot the name of the place.
That's all right.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Too much dead air space.
That's
right.
So, but basically, it's where they go to.
Since your kids were older, did you ever think about having children that were the age of your current children, and having them be friends? And,
honestly, no. We felt that we had enough teenage drama going on without adding to it.
Okay.
I mean, to be rather blunt,
Okay.
So
I'm just curious.
Yeah, that was kind of, and you can basically say, okay, this is the age group that I'm wanting to be able to do, because whatever your reasons, but statistically speaking, though, I mean the teenagers, there's a greater need for them.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
They've been in that system for a long time. They didn't get adopted.
Right.
They're home to home to home to home to home.
Right.
Potentially,
Yeah.
And now, are they home to home to home because the kid says, does the kid have any say as he grows to say, this is not a good fit for me? Or
usually, I mean, the kid may complain, and if they determine that it's legitimate, they might. Usually, though, it's more of a kind of a mutual thing, or more of the foster parents saying, okay, I might have, maybe I bit off more than I can handle.
right. And now you've done how many children again?
Total of 4.
4. you going to do any more?
We are considering it, yes.
Good. Wow. That's very commendable to just, you know.
We've taken about a little over a year off, just kind of waiting to see with the last one, just make sure that
I met the last one. I met the last
yes,
one. And then she was adopted to a home
she went with a family member, and,
okay.
and they were in the process of adopting her, and we just kind of kept our powder dry, so to speak, and just want to make sure that, you know, that she was going to be okay. And
didn't you fly with her there? Didn't you take
I did,
her there?
yeah.
How was that experience?
Heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'd grown close.
Yeah.
She was
And we'd
with
had
you
her
how
for
long?
she'd been with us for 3 years.
3 years.
So
That's the part that I don't. That's the part that I don't understand. That I would find difficult versus adoption. Adoption, you know, it just seems like.
you know, and that's it. That's it. I mean, yeah. And that's the whole
like
thing
these
of
birth mothers that give up their children, and then years later they regret it. And you hear the stories today with social media and everything. They get back together and everything, but it just.
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting because, and we have some contact with the family member that took her in, and I mean, we get the word that, you know, she's 5 now, so. She says, when I turn 18, I'm going to go back and visit them and live with them. We're like, fine, you know.
You know, and our next guest, I know a little bit more about her story than I knew about yours because I've known her longer.
Yeah.
And she also has done foster children, and I know in 2 cases she still stays in touch with them. They're well into their adult age now, you know. So
we still keep in touch with the first 2, the 2 sisters, and actually just. The past week we actually had them over, and they're very close with my daughters, especially, and they went to the zoo and hung out, and so
the one negative I've heard, and maybe you have, and this was a while ago, maybe they've changed it, but I heard that there's a certain age when they get to, they're no longer eligible for foster care.
I think they age out at either 18 or 19, if I'm not mistaken.
And lots of times, what I've heard is that they're like given some money for a bus ticket and some other things, but they're not. Many of them are not ready to go into the world. It's kind of like
I would say that is not uncommon at all.
Okay.
The mother of the baby that we took had actually aged out of foster care herself. And I mean, her situation never really got better.
I mean, even I would find it, maybe it's possible, but just as a teenager, getting a driver's license and a state ID or whatever, because you're on a different address all the time, and all those kinds of logistical things. So.
You know, and the one thing I would say about that is, I mean, you know, if you think about it, at 18, that's a very pivotal age. You're
right.
like, you know, developmentally, you're basically saying, okay, who am I? Where do I belong?
Right.
And you know, if they basically say, hey, okay, well, you're on your own, and give them $100 and throw them on the street, well, that's not exactly a recipe for success.
Right. They don't have a place to live. They don't have furniture. They don't have
friends. They don't have family. They don't, you know, I mean, or you know, they had the minimal social support.
Few things from maybe a public school, but other than that, just nothing.
And they might be out of school already, and so I mean.
Now they've got, what do? How do they find a job? How do they drive a car? Where do they live? Where do they sleep at night? Where, you know, all these things. So
how do they make decisions that are going to promote, you know, healthy lifestyles and health, you know, and success? You know, if that hasn't been, you know, really pounded into them during those teenage years,
sometimes it's hard enough.
They're in a world of hurt.
For many families, that's difficult just with their own children.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking of my own. It's like, okay, well, it's taken me longer than 18 to get some of the lessons across, you know.
Right. I mean, if I wasn't, I grew up in a great home, but if I would have been in foster care or something,
same me.
I probably wouldn't even be alive today.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I grew up in a great home, still made a
or
bunch of stupid mistakes.
ended up in crime or drugs or something
Yeah.
else, you know, because that's who would have welcomed me as I hit the street, you know. That's a concern, that's a weakness. It's a blessing that you and your wife would take in 4 children, considering another one now when you have 6 of your own, so that's 10.
Well, I don't have 6 at home anymore.
I know,
so.
but that's not the point. You've raised 6, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, but you had 6 at home when you started. That's what
Yeah.
you told me. They were all 6 at home. And then you had 2 to begin with, so that's 8. There's an old TV show called 8 is Enough, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it was.
And 8 is plenty, so. You know.
It was, you know, I mean, my oldest son was just about ready to graduate from college at that point,
Right.
and so he was there about a year.
So tell us, we have about 2 minutes. Tell us the name of the organization you used in Lincoln again, just for
Christian Heritage.
Christian Heritage, okay. And you probably go online, you can find lots of foster care
Oh yeah, I mean,
organizations.
Lutheran Family Services is another one that I'm familiar with. And
I would think Catholic Services would.
Catholic,
too.
I'm sure Catholic Charities has
Catholic
something.
Charities.
Yeah, and I mean I think there are other ones that don't have necessarily aren't necessarily faith-based.
Right.
But those are the ones that I'm familiar with.
Well, it's been great seeing you and your wife and some of your kids come into our church, getting to know you the last year and a half, and it's been great to hear these stories. Just think about caring community. Here's a family with 6 kids, launched out the first time, took 2 more kids, 8 is enough, then did it again, and thinking about doing it again, even though the last one they had, about 2 or 3 years, heart-wrenching as they had to release her to a family member, fly her to that other state, which I won't mention, but just that whole process, extreme amount of care, extreme amount of love, extreme amount of blessings. Clint, thank you to your wife. Thanks for sharing your story on Caring Community, and we'll have you back in sometime, talk about some other things that are going on in your life. Thanks a lot for tuning in to Caring Community. We'll see you next time. God bless you. Bye-bye.